All right, I'm excited to be here with Noosheen Hashemi, who is the CEO of January AI. How are you doing, Noosheen?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We connected in Las Vegas during CES. We had you on stage talking about precision nutrition and all those things. And one of the things you did at CES, which I thought was great, we wrote about it at the Spoon, was you introduced a new app that basically takes pictures of food, uses image recognition, and then uses AI to process that and does a prediction of how it will impact your blood sugar, which I think is a really cool approach to using AI and generative AI technology, and
Mhm.
obviously less invasive than using a continuous glucose monitor. Tell us a little bit about that app.
Okay, sure. The app uses three kinds of generative AI. The first one is our in-house homegrown generative AI that predicts your next glucose level. This is based on millions of data points from thousands of people that have completed the January Pro program, where we put CGMs on people. We've been putting CGMs on people since 2018. So we have data over 6 years. So the first generative AI essentially understands glucose prediction and understands glucose response to a variety of foods. We have 32 million foods in our database. And so that's one piece. The second piece is a vision model that essentially looks at a picture of a food and depicts what's in that picture. So last night I had split a dinner with my husband. I was having half fish, half steak, and a bunch of things around it, and it completely recognized all of those on the same platter. So the third piece is the language model that gives it a name. So it said grilled fish with steak, and then went on to say and carrots and this and this and that and the other. So it knows how to like name a dish. These three, so vision model, language model, and January's homegrown generative AI model that predicts your next glucose level, put together have created this sort of magical experience where you can look up and take a picture of a food and essentially get macros for it. So you can get total calories, you can get proteins, fat, fiber, protein, etc., carbs, but also you can see blood sugar impact. And this is based on your demographic information, your disease state, using the data from millions of data points that we have and using data from thousands of people. So it's very, very magical that way. And then you are able to hack your food. So you could say, what if I didn't eat the carrots? What if I didn't eat the cauliflower puree? What if I ate half of the steak, not all of it? And then you can see, the saturated fat adjusting and everything else adjusting. So it's really a powerful tool to help people learn sort of
Yep.
how hacking can impact their outcomes.
Yeah, and it's powerful because it's predicting how it'll impact your blood sugar. And so I would imagine the January platform has an understanding maybe of my past. Maybe is there some sort of testing you do up front? How does it work? Like it has a little understanding what my current state is and what this may do to it.
Yeah, the app assumes that it gives you this data for like a fasting state. It assumes you're fasting. That the
Okay.
predictive blood sugar is for your fasting state. So if you were a CGM with January and trained an AI model and you had a digital twin, yes, then you log your food all day long without a CGM. It will know minute by minute what your blood sugar is doing, even though you're not wearing a CGM anymore. But if you've never trained your AI and don't have your own digital twin, we're counting on this sort of more of the data from other people that you look like. And in that sense, we're giving you essentially fasting. It's pretty reliable to give you the fasting information. Now, it's not as reliable, obviously, as if you throw on a CGM and you said, I just ate three tacos, and now I'm going to eat this cake. But to the extent that you look things up, I think it's a very, very powerful tool to see what the blood sugar impact of each food is for you to try to avoid those spiking foods.
So with all your data, you have a good understanding. You said you've had a lot of folks using CGMs
Yeah.
for quite a while, gathered this large data set, and it then would do a profile of me if I'm choosing just to use the app, body weight,
Yeah.
age, etc. And then from
Yeah.
that cohort of that data, can then do some predictions.
Absolutely. Yes. We look at your gender, your age. We look at your BMI, bunch of demographics, how active you are. We also look at whether you you are healthy or have prediabetes or have type 2 diabetes. All of those go into your predictions. The beauty of this is that this app is free. You can learn it to get educated. And then if you can afford to or want to stick something in your arm, great. Now you can add a CGM to it. But feel very passionately that we want everyone in America to become glucose aware, because 96 million people have prediabetes and 90% of them don't know it. We don't have a screening practice in this country to screen for metabolic disease. So unless you're over 40 and quote unquote obese, you will not get screened.
It seems like kind of awareness of blood sugar and glucose is kind of having a moment. And this is like a really good time for you guys to come out with this app because people are realizing what an impact that has on your long-term health.
Yes, we are thrilled and excited that Abbott is going to put out Lingo, which is a over-the-counter, no prescription needed continuous glucose monitor. And we are super excited that Dexcom is going to put out Stelo, also an over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor, not needing a prescription. And we think that more people will see advertising for this. More people will become blood sugar aware in America in the years to come. And I think, the same way that Fitbit had an impact on 10,000 steps or Oura had an impact on sleep, we think that these over-the-counter continuous glucose monitors will go far in raising public awareness around the importance of blood sugar. And think of our product as a gateway to that world, and think of it as a free tool that you can use to self-educate and self-advocate.
Yeah, it's free, it's less invasive, and like you said, if you can't afford one of these, great. But I like the fact that you open doors for a gateway for people to start learning about their own. I do think like long term. I was just at the Google Food Lab, and there's a futurist called Mike Lee who has this great book out looking at the future and all these different scenarios that the future and food tech could take us. And one is he's looking at precision and personalized nutrition. And he writes a story of this family that basically uses a platform called Stack. 30 years in the future, they're all having Thanksgiving dinner, and they all have this embedded stomach sensor. It's kind of a crazy future vision, but actually it's fairly plausible if you think about it. Maybe 25 years in the future, people will have this embedded. It's not necessarily like an enthusiastic endorsement of this type of future, because it does seem like this might be kind of crazy. It seems like maybe AI could allow us to avoid these types of features, even though some people may choose to do that.
Well, I would I wouldn't say it would help us necessarily to avoid them, but let me say that generally, Mustafa Suleiman recently said that we are the beginning of the digital species. So human beings are moving from Homo sapiens to these sort of digital beings. And that's because we are going to be also wearing digital stuff, and we will become eventually part human, part machine. So I think the idea of wearables is very real. And I think wearables are going to get smaller, less invasive, and they're going to cost less. And yes, we may ingest them or we may inject them under our skin. For example, there is a sensor that is being worked on right now. It reads 20 analytes. It lives for 3 years, and it's in rats right now. It's going to go into humans in about 3 years. So I don't think that's odd or strange. I do think that the data that we get from these sensors is so powerful and so interesting because it's continuous. Because it is continuous data, we're able to see patterns and we're able to see unusual moments. So if you want to solve for health, if everyone was wearing sensors, we'd be able to quickly see kind of what's going on with everyone. So I'm not anti-sensor. However, sensors, whenever they come out, they're expensive. So, your Apple Watch was $1,200, your Oura Ring was $400, just like your 23andMe test came out was $400. Later, it was $99. But usually when these technologies come out, and my understanding is that the over-the-counter CGMs are going to cost the same as they do for people with diabetes. I was hoping they'd cost like a third. But these things, when they first come out, they're expensive. So that's the beauty of AI. AI helps us essentially provide a similar experience backed by science, legitimate data to people, backed by science without having those expensive sensors. It should not be required for every single person to wear those sensors to get generally probabilistic data for them. And most of science is run that way anyway.
Looking towards our current U.S. health system, we obviously, like you said, you talked about, like, so many people are at risk for type 2 diabetes. I think that some of our senators were recently kind of saying, hey, we need to, like, make these GLP-1 drugs more affordable. They're much more expensive here in the U.S. Than in Europe, for example, and some are even talking about requiring Novo Nordisk to bring the price down. But I do think these drugs are hugely valuable to a lot of people, but they're so out of reach because they cost so much, and the U.S. insurance market can be gamed. Is what you're building maybe an alternative that can maybe be used for folks instead of injecting a GLP-1 drug like Ozempic?
Definitely. To the extent that behavior change can help, I mean, some people can't be helped by anything. They really need that drug. A lot of people need that drug to sort of kickstart a process for them. But it's well known that behavior change is what you need in order to maintain. So essentially, you can use the product, use the AI instead of the drug if you can't afford to take the drug, or because your insurance doesn't cover it and you can't afford it. You can use the AI with the drug, so you can change your behavior while you're on the GLP-1 so that coming off of it is easier. You can also use the drug when you're weaning off the drug, because a lot of people don't want to stay on it for the rest of their lives. Some people want to, but some people don't want to, either because of side effects or because of costs. So we think that ultimately, people, when we're talking to multiple clinics that are dispensing GLP-1s, and they all say most people who come to my door don't qualify for insurance, but they need a solution. So I need an AI solution. I need an app, or I need something to give them to change behavior, and then I want to put them on the drug responsibly. And once they are also getting weaned off, I want to help them. The other thing is that CGMs and GLP-1s work well together. And we've seen research that GLP-1s used in combination with CGMs do better. So if you really use GLP-1s and CGMs and January, then you have a solid plan. But eventually AI can get rid of the drugs and the devices and work on its own.
Is it the holy trinity? GLP-1s, CGMs, and January AI. You got them all together. But yeah, I like that you're providing an off ramp in some ways, also an alternative for people who can't afford it. And it just seems like it's a good moment for you guys.
Exactly. Yes. Well, 7 years in the making.
Yep. Well, Noosheen, I'm really excited to have you in Seattle at Smart Kitchen Summit talking about this, and folks who come can hear you talk about it and all the stuff that you're building. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Great. We're really, really looking forward to participating.